Tomas Hertl going from the San Jose Sharks to the Vegas Golden Knights. A couple of picks being swapped there as well. Let's bring in our insider, Elliotte Friedman, right now, who's been hard at work for the last, month or so. Finally a good break here. Elliotte, look, EJ's reaction when we found that out live on air was literally, wow. What was your reaction based on that news? Something that we didn't see this one coming.
No, you know what? I heard Vegas was working on something big, but I did not figure that one out. Like, I spent a lot of the day trying to figure out what they were up to, and I did not see that one coming. But basically what happened was they had inquired on Hertl, from what I understand, a few months ago, and then Hertl got hurt. And then it became a matter of, was he going to be able to play again this year? And once it was established that Hertl was not getting like a major procedure done that could knock him out for the season, he was back on Vegas's radar. And, it got tricky because between the Eichel injury and the Stone injury and what Vegas could do on LTIR and all of the different things that had to happen, because Eichel came back, Stone got hurt. So basically, because of all of their situations, they had to see if this could actually work. And, I do think that he is expected to play. I think that he's, from what I understand, the target is he's going to play sometime in the last 2 weeks of the season. And plus also the NHL is going to look at all of this very closely because of all of the complaints that come with all the LTIR moves that the teams make. Basically, it came down to that. It came down to the fact that he was not going to be out for the season, that they were going to be able to use him for the playoffs. They did have the LTIR room once Eichel came back, and this was a player that Vegas was really interested in. So that's kind of how it all worked. Like I said, I heard Vegas was up to something big, but I did not see this one coming. I'm not that smart.
Yeah, well, listen, nobody saw it coming, that's for sure. I could ask you a million questions about the Vegas situation, but, we get into a lot of cap numbers, and so I don't know if I'll drive the fans crazy with that. I'll go to Colorado because it's in the same, these teams are kind of all gunning for each other now in the West. I was surprised today that the Colorado Avalanche didn't address the goaltending, at least a backup goalie. I know Georgiev is their guy for now, but were you as surprised as I was that they didn't go get Nedeljkovic or just somebody that could be an experienced guy in case something happens?
I was surprised a little bit, but EJ, one of the things I kind of heard with Colorado is they were looking at some moves, and there became some concerns about, what could happen if they suffered an injury and what that might mean in goal. I do think they had some cap concerns about that. Like, basically, when you get close enough to the cap, if you suffer an injury in goal, then you might have to go for a game without an NHL goalie or an AHL goalie or a pro goalie on your roster. And I think that was one of Colorado's concerns. So I don't know if that prevented them from going to get another goalie, but one thing I do believe is that did prevent them potentially from adding another player. So definitely their cap situation affected what they could do after they made some of the other moves they did at the deadline.
Elliotte, in Boston, did we see Ullmark use his trade protection to nix anything? That's what has been reported. I think it was Weeksy, but I thought that they were going to go with these two guys. Was there an option for them to really get something back that was going to make their team better right now and trade Ullmark?
Brian, I do think they explored trading Ullmark. I'm not going to question anybody else's reporting because I just don't know at this point in time. I do think that, I do think they explored the market for Ullmark. I think that's absolutely true. I do think that they talked about him with some teams. I do think there were some teams that were interested. I heard that there were some teams that were potentially on his list that looked at him, and I heard that Ullmark was not inclined to change his list in the middle of the season. So that's a lot of circumstantial evidence. I do think that there were, I guess some of the reports were about geography. I do think there was at least one team in the Eastern Conference that looked at Ullmark and considered it rather seriously. So I think that I do think there was more than one potential trade option for him. I just think at the end of the day, whether so I guess my answer to this is I do think it's possible he used his protection and Don Sweeney wouldn't answer that. But I also think there was another team in the Eastern time zone that Boston discussed Allmark with that they couldn't get a trade done with. And I'm not sure why the answer was at this point in time.
Interesting. Elliot, you've covered a lot of these trade deadlines over the course of your career. How does this one compare to other years? It felt like Wednesday, with everything happening, we weren't even going to have a show here on Friday. How does this play out this year compared to years past based on, market value, buyers, sellers market? How does this one feel?
I think it was definitely a market where if you had players that people wanted, you did pretty well. And I always believe, Jameson, that every year there's something that comes out of nowhere that really shocks you. And this year there were two. One was Hertl, and the other was the Middlestat for Byram deal. I think those were the two deals. All I can say for myself is that I didn't see those coming. Even though, like I said, I heard Vegas was up to something big. So there were surprises. There were players who got traded. We expected them to get traded, who got traded to places that we weren't necessarily expecting them to go, like Hanifin to Vegas. I think we all thought that he was going to be a Tampa Bay guy, but he went somewhere else. And I think there were a lot of rentals on the last day that really started to go. So I really enjoyed this trade deadline. I'm going to take a working week off next week because I'm starting to slip at the end with bad tweets and things that weren't as solid as information processed, not as solid as I would have liked to. But I thought it was a good, fun trade deadline. I'm happy it's over, and I'm sure a lot of the players and the GMs are too.
Hey, Elliot, you do a great job. And listen, you got the insider's dream. You were on live TV, and you got to break the Hanifin trade during the game on TNT, I believe, if that's correct. So, I mean, you've had a good week. Let's not be too hard on yourself.
You know what? I'll say this, EJ, could always be better.
No, that's true.
Be better.
Fair point.
Hey, your hair looks great.
Yeah, the hair looks good. Yeah, well, he's in the TV studio today, so they take care of him. He's not at home.
Brian, when you have the stylist in, that's like cheating. I can't take any credit for that.
Hey, well, give me your thoughts on Kuznetsov, because that was kind of a surprise this morning. He got sent to Hershey. He's come out of the player assistant program. I mean, it didn't seem like there was a solution that was going to happen this quickly. But yet he didn't. He's already been on the ice practice with the Canes. It looks like he's going to play tomorrow. What do you know about how that all went down?
I first heard about this one 2 days ago, and I was working about it, that there was the possibility that this could happen. If you take a look if you go to the Google machine, EJ, I think you can find some positive quotes from Rod Brind'Amour about Kuznetsov from a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So someone had directed me to that and said, watch this. So I heard it was a possibility. And also, I think that Carolina, and I'm sure this will come out, I heard that Carolina asked some of their players about it too, and I think some of the players gave positive reviews about Kuznetsov as a player. And so, look, I think everybody agreed that he needed a change of scenery. We all would hope he's doing okay. He's been through, obviously, an awful lot. But I really heard that over the last 48 hours that Carolina was a team because of how some of their players felt about him and how Brind'Amour felt about him. As long as he was in a good place, they were willing to do it. And they were obviously willing to do that today. So I think this is something the Hurricanes had discussed about quite seriously for at least 48 hours.
We've been following along, obviously, your tweets and everybody else's, but especially one of our colleagues, Jason Demers, just because every time a big trade happens, he has to redo his Stanley Cup Finals picks.
Like a 9-year-old.
Look, it's a political season, but this guy flip-flops more than any politician I know. So I'll ask you the same question. Based on, all of the additions, subtractions that we've seen over the course of the last week or so. Yes, exactly. Have you changed your tune as far as who you have coming out of the East and who you have coming out of the West?
I got to tell you that first round of the Western Conference playoffs is going to be incredible. You have to like Vegas. You have to like Vegas. You know what? I thought Winnipeg had a really good deadline. I like what but now you're looking, and I'm not sure, Vegas might, what are the chances they're going to actually finish as the 8th seed? Imagine you win the Western Conference and your first round reward is the Vegas Golden Knights with with everybody there, and we'll see what happens with Stone. I really get sorry, I really get some mixed ideas on what Stone's status is going to be. That's something you can't really put a timeline on. I'll tell you this. I really like what Winnipeg did.
Yeah.
I really like what their team looks like. I think I think Vegas is going to be a problem. I don't know who to pick out of the Western Conference. I really don't. Out of the East, I really like Florida and I really like Carolina. Those are my 1-2 teams in the Eastern Conference, particularly if Carolina's goaltending holds.
It's interesting, Elliot, because we were talking about that throughout the afternoon too. Is like Vegas could end up being if they end up as the 8th seed, you win the conference, great. You end up with Vegas, but even a team like Nashville, I mean, they've been playing very well lately. They're going to be a prohibitive underdog if they make the playoffs at all to whoever they play, but yet good goalie. Pretty good defense, strong forechecking group. I mean, you're right. The Western Conference playoffs this year, complete chaos. I have no idea how it's going to play out, but it's going to be fun to watch.
Well, I have a lot of respect for Nashville because after what happened with that trip to Vegas, their season could have gone completely sideways.
Yep.
And those guys pulled it together. And, the other thing, too, is they got rewarded for it. Some players got subtracted, but they added as well, too. They brought in Zucker, who I really like. I've always liked him as a player. They brought in a few guys. They added to their team. Anything they subtracted, they brought back in. I agree with you. And don't forget, last time they made the playoffs, Saros got hurt.
That's right
before.
Yep.
And they got so he's an evener in a series. You would not want to see him. So I'm with you. I think that first round Western Conference playoffs, guys, I'm not a big gambler and I only do it for fun. And I'm happy to say that I would not be wagering on anything in that first round, I don't think.
No.
Elliot, what are your buddies in Toronto thinking of what the Leafs have done? We haven't talked much about them here yet today. I know there's a number of different ways they could have gone about it, but I sort of like the minor things that they did. EJ over here thinks they're going to get bounced in the first round. Probably.
Yeah. Well, I don't think their D is good enough. That's just me.
Well, welcome to Canada, EJ.
Yeah, there you go.
You're welcome. I got to say this, Brian. This is a team, one of the criticisms of Toronto over the last few years is they've never been as good as the sum of their parts, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this team this year has been better than the sum of their parts. I think considering what's happened in goal this year and considering the injuries on defense this year, I think that team has played really well. And I think they looked at some things, like their GM tends to be in a lot of things, but because they wanted to hold on to their prospects, and when you look at their first round pick, they held it. They wanted to trade it for Zadorov and Tanev. I think they looked at some other combinations to do with it this year. I think if they were going to trade their first round, they wanted it to be just more than a rental, and they didn't obviously find anything they really liked. It sounds, the odds are it's going to be Toronto, Boston in the first round. If you saw them play last night, that's going to be a hell of a series. I thought they plugged some holes, but I know there are fans here who look at it like, hey, you've got these guys in their prime, you've got to swing bigger, and they chose not to swing bigger this time. I think to me, it's a lot of health. Do their goalies stay healthy? Does their blue line stay healthy? They haven't been able to do that this year, and then your star players are going to carry you through it. I really like. I think they tried to swing higher, Brian, but they just didn't find anything they liked.
Elliot, is the blue line good enough, though?
Look. I think I'll tell you this: Boston this week forechecked them aggressively, and they had trouble with it. They're going to have to handle the forechecking a lot better in the playoffs, because the playoffs are all about forechecking.
Yep. All about health, too. Speaking of health, how's the health of your eyeballs? After hearing 17 hours a day on the screen. I mean, look, that's any kid's dream on their iPad, their screen time. But
I'm telling this, I'm gonna have a working vacation next week. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. We'll see.
As I always say, it's time for my wife's boyfriend to get out of the house.
Get out. Wait, we'll see you at the GM's meetings in Florida. You have a nice.
That's right, you will.
That's a working vacation.
That's right. Bring the family.
No, unfortunately, they can't come this year,
too bad.
So they're not going to be able to attend. Yeah.
We appreciate your insight, all your hard work. I know everybody around the hockey world does. Enjoy your working vacation. We'll talk to you down the road, okay?
All right, guys. Great to chat with you. Okay.
All right,
Speak to
Elliot
you later.
Friedman.